You're listening to the Profit First for Lawyers podcast, the official companion show to the book Profit First for Lawyers by Arjan Robbins. Now, this podcast is for you if you want to bring home more profit while working less hours in the office, spending more time with your loved ones doing the things you actually want to do, and turning your office into a lean, mean, profit-breathing machine. So if you're tired of working for your law firm instead of your law firm working for you, stay tuned for some really practical insights that will get you the results you've always wanted. It's time to put your BS aside for the next few minutes and put yourself, your family, your firm, and your profit first. Welcome back to another episode of the Profit First for Lawyers podcast. I'm your host, Carly, and today we're tackling the business plan mountain. And look, I know you may have only worn your slippers today, but we sat down with Erika Ferenczi, who's a member of the executive team at How to Manage, and she is an absolute expert on this topic. And she's bringing along your hiking boots. So buckle in and get ready for an adventure. Let's roll it. Erika, thank you so much for being on the show today. I am so excited to have this conversation with you.
I am super excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invite, and I can't wait to just dive and delve into the business plan creation and how it can help our listeners. So thank you for having me.
Oh man, me too. This is one of those topics that I think I wouldn't necessarily say overlooked. I think everybody knows that they need to have a business plan, but I think it often gets brushed under the rug. So I'm excited to kind of bring some of that value as well as give some really good actionable tips to get started to kind of overcome some of that overwhelm.
Looking forward to it too.
Yeah. For the audience that is not as familiar with you directly, can you give us a little bit of background on what interested you about this topic and kind of some of your background in the corporate world in general?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's very, very interesting. So my background is in business administration and finance. I've worked in several corporations, Fortune 500 companies throughout the years, mainly in the areas of marketing and sales. So while I did specialize in my background in college in finance, I really got thrown into marketing and sales right away. In my first job, I remember I was interviewed and hired for the finance department. And the day that I started, my new boss called me and said, you're hired. I know you have an offer. I just have some news for you because they just promoted me to the marketing department. So I want to know if you still want to join me, but it's going to be in marketing. And I was like, oh my God, do I really need to do marketing? It wasn't one of the things that I was really looking forward to. Anyway, the thing is I started in marketing and sales, and I really fell in love with that part of the business. But the financials and the numbers, it's pretty second nature, but really learning to understand how is that the marketing and sales are the driving forces of a business. And when you pair that with financials and the profitability and the profit and loss statements and all of that, it's just really magical. So anyway, I got hired in the marketing department, got promoted in around 9 months, then got promoted again in another 9 months. From there, it's always been managing teams of sales, managing teams of marketing. In other businesses where I work, managing teams of engineers in telecommunications. So that's a little bit of my background, marketing and sales, finance and business. Then after a few years, several years, I left the corporate world and I started traveling around the world because of my husband's work. So this created a desire for me to start a business that could be location independent. So in that moment, I started my own business, and that's how I met Arjan. And then the rest is history.
Erika, I did not know that you kind of got your start, first of all, in finance, but then switcheroo into marketing. I think that's fascinating, but it does make a lot of sense because the more that I speak with Arjan and interview various experts and people who work on our team, the more that I realize how interconnected all of that stuff is. So it kind of makes sense to me that you were a bit of the shoe-in to talk about business plans today, because it is very interconnected in ways that I think a lot of smaller entrepreneurs either don't have experience with or just haven't seen yet.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, when you're in these big corporations, Fortune 500 companies, etc., like you would not dare to run anything without a business plan. You would never go a year without a business strategic planning session that usually we call the profit plan session that starts in October, November with targets, the marketing, the number. It's pretty much the creation of a business plan for the next 12 months. I mean, you would get fired if you ever ran the business without that. So it's so second nature. And then when you transition into the entrepreneurial world of the small business, like when you talk about a business plan or a strategic planning process, everybody looks at you like, what are you talking about? So it's very, very interesting.
I really like that reframing. And I think Arjan said something similar in Profit First for Lawyers when he said that you can't have a multi-million-dollar law firm if you don't do the things that owners of multi-million-dollar law firms do. And it sounds like this is a big part of that. What makes a business plan a good business plan? And how can you turn maybe a bad or a poorly thought business plan into a good business plan?
So I think that the most important thing that people need to understand, and the reason why more people don't do it, is because they think that creating a business plan is this overcomplicated process that is going to take them however number of hundreds of hours to create, and it should be this thick document. That's not what a business plan for an entrepreneurial business is. A business plan, a good business plan for an entrepreneurial business or a small business, small law firm, it is a document that explains in plain English, no complicated concepts, how is that this business is supposed to make a profit and the money the owner needs in order for the owner to live the life that they want to live. That is where we start, because small business owners, what they think about is not what is a life that I want to live, but they are thinking, what could I aspire to? What would be reasonable for me to aspire to? And it's definitely not the place to start, but I digress. We'll get to that in a second. So a business plan can really be a very simple document that is around 16, 20 pages of a working document, but it all gets summarized at the end in a probably 4 or 5 page document. What makes a business plan a good business plan? Well, number one, it needs to explain how is that each one of the 7 parts of the business is going to work. The 7 parts of the business being the marketing, the sales, the production, the people, the physical plant, the systems and procedures, the financial reports, and then at the center of it all is the owner. So every business plan should start with a very fundamental question, which is, you, owner of this business or law firm, what is the life that you would like to be living 2 or 3 years from now? So what are your goals? What are your personal goals? What are your professional goals? What are your financial goals? So we start with that one part. And then what we do in the process of business planning is that we kind of back engineer, and we go with the end in mind, and then we go back and we write down what are the numbers, what are the sales, the leads, etc., all of the 7 parts of the business that need to be produced in order for this owner to make eventually that amount of money. Now, when you ask the business owners how much money would they need in order to live that ideal life, they might come up with an amount that is way larger than whatever they are making right now. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that they're going to make that amount of money in the next 6 months. It can be a 3-year goal or a 5-year goal. And then what we do in those cases, we again go back, say, okay, so if in 3 years you want to be taking home, let's say $500,000, then what do we need to do? 3 years minus 1, 3 years minus 2, 3 years minus 3, right? And that's how we end up with a target number, a goal of what we want to achieve with this particular business that we want to start or grow in the next usually 12 to 18 months.
it's not as grandiose as it seems. It starts, we're going to distill it down to what do you, the owner of the business, want for yourself and for your business. And it's kind of funny. We've been talking about this quite a bit in this season, figuring out what your definition of success is and engineering your total owner benefits. And so I like that because this kind of seems like the natural stepping stone to now you know what you want, and now you know how much you need to make in order to get what you want. And now let's figure out how to get the business running so that it can support both of those goals.
Right. And as you were talking, Carly, one of the things that I thought is what is very interesting is that people, individuals, owners of businesses, do the process exactly the other way around. What they do is they look at the business, wherever the business is, and they start thinking, well, based on the reality of my business, how much money could I pay myself, right? Hopefully they're paying themselves, because there's a lot of people that are not even paying themselves, or they are paying themselves a ridiculously low amount. But what they look is at the circumstances of the business, and then they make their life fit the business, which is it's such a mistake. The way that we create things and how to manage a small law firm is exactly the opposite way, which is, what is the kind of life that I want to be living? What is my next goal? Then creating a plan with the business plan as to how am I going to direct the growth of this business? What am I going to do with the marketing and the sales and the production? How is that I, as the owner and driver of the growth of this business, I am going to direct the growth of this business in a way that is going to allow me to hit my next goal. And that is the right way of doing it.
Ooh, can I say, okay, Erika, that gave me a little bit of chills. And the mental image that I had while you were speaking is, the numbers and the goals, that is a dream, right? And I pictured grabbing this dream, right? This up in the clouds dream, and pulling it down to reality as you were speaking. And that's kind of what gave me a little bit of goosebumps there, right? Is this is how we help you make your dream a reality. And it is tangible and it is achievable, and it's not just something in the clouds.
Right. And you know what is so interesting? You're absolutely 100% right. I read in a book, I don't even remember which book, but this author said, whenever you have a dream, you should always shoot for the stars. Because even if you miss, you will land in the moon, right? So it doesn't matter if you miss it. At least if you shoot for something that you truly, truly want, although it might seem unattainable to you right now, you're going to be so much better off than where you are today if you dare to actually dream to go for something big. And another quote that I really love is, I think, from Eisenhower, that he said, the plan is useless, but the planning is essential. So the important thing of the business plan is not necessarily going to be that every single month we hit all of the numbers that are there. Ideally, we will. But if we don't, it doesn't matter that much. We will readjust. The business plan is a living document that we are not going to create once a year and just put away in a drawer. We work every single month of the year against that business plan. And sometimes we're going to be a little bit ahead, and sometimes we're going to be a little bit behind. And sometimes we're going to adjust the numbers up or down, and it is okay. What matters is the intentionality of sitting down and actually thinking through the process. Because believe it or not, what happens is that in a very core level, we make 80% of our decisions subconsciously. So if we have a target that we know we're trying to hit, a lot of our decision making will be directed by that target we already defined. If we do not have a target, we're just going to go sometimes right, sometimes left, and we're going to end up not missing the goal because there was never a goal.
That has blown my mind a little bit today. I've never really thought about it that way. But you're right. Arjan talks about that a little bit too sometimes, where he said, he has trained his brain a little bit to keep working while he's sleeping. And I wonder if it's kind of that same principle, right? That your subconscious is making 80% of your decisions. So if you point somewhere, it can be doing that for your benefit. And if you don't have a point, if you don't have a goal, then it's just going to be whatever it thinks you need the most in that moment. You won't really get any traction. Okay, Erika, I am stoked to kind of go through the steps here. So can we get a little more tactical now? And let's talk about, I am convicted. I know that I need to create my business plan. Where on earth do I start?
When we want to change our circumstances, when we want to change our lives, when we want to start a business, we really need four things. The first thing is we need to be absolutely clear of where we are. Because if we don't know where we're starting, there's no possible way we can chart a course. So we need to know where we are, what is the reality of our circumstances, as raw and as real as possible. Second thing we need is we need a goal. So what is that I would like to create? And when I say this, the things that I want our listeners to be thinking about is, number one, how much money would you like to be making? Let's say 12 months from now. Forget about 3 years, just 12 months from now. Maybe this year you took home 60,000, 80,000, 200,000, whatever the number is. How much would you like to take home next year? What would feel like you really made progress? Then how many vacations you want to take? What kind of vacations you want to take? So how many hours do you want to be working every day? How many days of the week would you like to be working? How many weeks of the year, or how many would you like to be working, or how many weeks of the year would you like to take vacation? So when I say the goals, that's what I mean. Start looking at those very specific things. So where you are, you identify where you are, you identify where you would like to be. I said four things. The third thing is we need a different plan. If we just keep doing everything that we've done before, we're going to end up wherever we ended up in the past. And that is exactly how the majority of businesses work, right? The average law firm in the United States, a small law firm, grows around 5% year after year after year. That means that if you have a law firm that it makes $100,000 this year in gross revenue, next year is going to be $105,000, and the following year $110,000, the following year $115,000. Well, when you are only growing $5,000 or $10,000 in gross revenue a year, there's really not a lot of bottom line available for the owner. So you need a different plan. And number four, what you need is accountability. A higher level of accountability than you ever had before. Self-accountability, but also an external party that can keep you accountable and can give you the insights that you are not going to be able to have by yourself. So you asked me very practical. You identify where you are, you identify where you want to be, and then we start creating this business plan. So the first question is, if next year I want to take out of the business, let's say that this year I took out, 100,000. And next year I want to grow my personal income from 100,000 to, let's say, 150,000. Then what does that mean in terms of my sales in the business? What is that this business need to sell? How many units of what I sell? In the case of law firms is the files, right? The matters that each client comes and purchases the legal services. How many of those, let's call it widgets, do I need to sell? At what price? So my law firm can have an X amount of gross revenue. So at the end of the year, after paying all of my expenses, I'm going to be able to keep X amount of money. One of the things that people ask us is, okay, but how? How do I know how much? And I'm going to give you a very simple formula. Remember, this business plan is not going to be, the law. It's just going to give us a roadmap on how to get to places. So the first thing that the business owners need to do is to figure out what is the average case value, what is the average price at which they are going to sell their services. Say that I say, well, you know what, this law firm needs to sell $300,000 in legal services. so I can take home around 100,000. Now, how did I get to those numbers? A well-run and managed law firm should have around 30% of profit margin. So I'm just using that rule of thirds. And I said, well, if this law firm produces between 300 and 350,000, I will be able to take home as the owner around 100,000. So that's how I get to those numbers. Then let's say that I am clear now that this law needs to produce $300,000. Then what I do is I divide the $300,000 into my average case value. In this case, I said an average case value of around $5,000, and I don't have my calculator in front of me, but I think it's around 60 cases. So 60 cases times $5,000, that would be around $300,000 a year. And that is where we begin. I need to sell 60 units of these particular cases. And if I do that and I work the cases and I collect my money, right, because some people don't collect their money, then I will be able to collect and have those $300,000. And then the next question is marketing. So if now I understand I need to sell 60 gadgets, 60 legal matters of this number, of this kind, at $5,000 each, then the question is, how many people do I need to speak to actually get 60 clients? Now, please mind you that I'm talking to you about 60 clients a year, right? So we're talking around, again, I don't have a calculator in front of me, but let's say 4 or 5 clients a month. Let's say 5 a month. So 5 clients a month, right? If every time that I speak to 10 people, let's say, if I have 10 consultations in my agenda, around 5 of them actually hired me to be their lawyer, then that would give me around a 50% conversion rate. So if I need 5 clients every month at 50% conversion rate, I can do 5 divided into 0.5, and that will give you that you need to speak to 10 people. And then we're getting into marketing, right? 10 people need to be sitting in front of me if I do consultations in person or if I do it virtually. 10 people, but not everybody that calls my law firm will schedule a consultation. There's some people that will call and it will not be a good client for us, or maybe they want something else. So I need to figure out from everyone who calls my law firm, or from every 10 or 20 people that call my law firm, how many of those do they actually schedule a consultation? And for now, for ease sake with this number, let's imagine that it's also 50%. That out of every 10 that call, 5 schedule a consultation. So I know that I need 10 consultations to get 5 clients, but that means that I need 20 people interested. So 10 of them schedule a consultation, so 5 actually convert. And that's how we walk the numbers backwards.
I really like that. I think it demystifies it somewhat because it is such an easy way to just break it down, right? If you want to make X amount of dollars and you make this much profit off of this much gross revenue, then you have to gross X amount of gross revenue. And in order to do that, you need X amount of cases. And in order to do that, you need X amount of conversions. And in order to do that, you need X amount of consults. And in order to do that, you need X amount of phone calls. Like that is so approachable, I think. You're right. It's much simpler, even though it requires some math. That's like lower junior high level math.
It's just really, multiplication and division, and that's really it, right? And once you have those number of leads, right, people interested in your services, now is the $1 million question. What am I going to do? And this is what people call a marketing plan. It's like this big word, right? But when you're a small business owner, basically what that means is what activities, what strategies are you going to put in place in order for you to let the marketplace know that you have this solution to this particular problems. And the problem is when we talk about marketing plans, people overcomplicate the process and they want to just go and start thinking about online media and webinars and landing pages and PPC and SEO and all of these things that are not really so easy for especially like lawyers or other people that did not go to school to study these things to implement. But the important thing that people need to hear from us is that we want you to focus on grassroots marketing. Now, listen, disclaimer. If you already have a $2, $5, $10 million law firm, I understand you're not going to get all of your leads with grassroots marketing. So in those cases, absolutely, moving into more online and digital media avenues, totally yes. But when you have a smaller law firm where what you really want is high ROI because your cash flow is not that large, you don't have a lot of cash flow, you don't want to be spending large amounts of money to get 3 clients. You want strategies that are going to be easy, they're going to be fast, and they're going to be high ROI. You want to focus on grassroots marketing. And that will be your marketing plan. You know, how many of these activities am I going to do per month? Those are really the foundational parts of the business plan. The goals, the number of sales that we need in order for the owner to take that money out of the business, the number of consultations we need, and the number of leads that we need to get to those consultations, and then the activities that we are going to do, simple activities, in order to create those leads. That would be some of the foundational pieces of building a business plan.
That's great, Erika. I think that's really, really great. It makes it feel very approachable.
That sounds like a lot, right?
It sounds like a lot, but it also sounds
like a lot, but I promise you it's not that difficult. I promise you it's not that difficult. I mean, we walk our prospects and our clients through this process in a 2 or 3 hour workshop, right? Of course, we have 2 days workshops and 1 day workshops and all of those things, but in a 2 or 3 hour, working session, we really can finalize a business plan. It does not have to be complicated.
Yeah, I feel like, and obviously I've never put together a business plan or attempted to put together a business plan because I am not myself an entrepreneur, but it has always felt, at least to me, like this, I'm so glad I'm not an entrepreneur because that seems like a lot of work. As far as like putting together this kind of a complicated plan. But you're right. This sounds very approachable and very close to, I don't know, some of the things that I do have experience with, which is just take it apart small by small and don't make it be grandiose. I think that's what I'm hearing here more than anything else, right? Is don't try to make it grandiose. Just keep it simple. It needs to be workable. It doesn't need to be impressive.
Definitely. Oh, this is one thing, lawyers like to make things impressive and grandiose, right? Is that's how they've been trained and that's how, they think. I have this saying that, or teaching, I guess, where I really recommend lawyers to buy 2 baseball hats, 2 different baseball hats. 1 baseball hat and different colors, please. One needs to be whatever color, but just different colors. So let's say that you had 1 white and 1 black. One of them is going to say lawyer, and one of them is going to say entrepreneur or CEO or business owner. And when they're doing legal production, put on your lawyer hat, right? Just overcomplicate things. Try to find every single thing that could go wrong to prevent it. Do bunch of analysis to make sure that you are catching everything that could possibly need to be catched and all of those things. Great. But the second that you are talking about business plans, sales, profit margins, marketing, and anything that has to do with business development, please take off your lawyer hat and put on your entrepreneur hat. And the entrepreneur hat is the entrepreneur, is the mindset, is the ethos. We're not afraid of making mistakes. We will make mistakes. The goal is to make mistakes fast and learn from the mistakes and try again. We are not going to overcomplicate things. We're going to make it very, very simple. We are not going to make things grandiose. We're just going to make things in plain English and workable so they can be deployed and implemented as fast as possible. So again, we can either succeed or fail fast, learn and do it all over again. And speed that gets created with fast implementation is the speed that creates the momentum, that creates the success that some of our clients have, which is pretty impressive, to be honest.
There are so many things that I really like about what you just said, Erika. And I think that physical shift between switching hats, even just the thought of like physically switching your hat, I think is such a good, I mean, we do that all the time, right? Like I wear a different hat, not literally. Maybe I should get one. I wear a different hat when I'm working at my desk than I do when I am helping my daughter with her homework. You know, I wear a different hat when I am performing on stage than I do when I am making dinner for my family. I don't know, there's something about thinking of that as a physical thing that does kind of give a little bit of clarification on that separation.
When you put it on, you're just going to think differently. And we have a lot of members that have actually done it, and they can see the difference because now they're making a conscious choice. They're going to change the way in how they operate their minds. And it's very, very powerful.
Hey folks, quick interruption here. If the math is starting to feel a little overwhelming, or if you're just feeling really inspired and you're ready to get started, you can download our business plan workbook for free, which has all of this information laid out in plain English and will help you get your business plan on paper at last. So go to profitfirstforlawyers.com/action to snag that. Okay, now back to the show. Okay, I don't want to overcomplicate the business plan too much. I do want to talk about how we map out the rest of the 7 main parts. So let's go into it. So we've talked about sales and marketing. Let's talk about production and people and physical plant and financial controls. How do we put that in our business plan?
Okay, so we talked about goals, number one. We talked about then the sales we need to make this work. We talked about how much the owner wants to make, and we talked about marketing and sales. The third part of this is the factory, right? The factory is, well, we got 10 clients. Now, how are we going to produce this work? What are the systems? What are the procedures? What is the assembly line that needs to be put in place in order for this work to actually produce what we promise our clients that we're going to do for them? So do we have a paralegal? Do we have a receptionist that picks up the phone? Do we have an executive assistant or an assistant that helps us? What do we have, or what do we need in terms of resources for the factory? So the people that are listening to us, think about a factory line. What parts of the factory line do I need to be able to produce this work efficiently, most importantly, professionally, and reliably? So I don't want this factory line to work one day and not work the other day, because that is going to create a lot of headaches for the business owner. Now, the systems, the procedures, right, that are going to make all of this work. Now, number 4, the people. Because the systems are the ones that make the business work, but the people are the ones that manage the systems. So who is going to manage this system? Who's going to create the procedures? Who's going to open the file? Who's going to do the discovery? Who's going to write the letters? Who's going to send out the contract? So what people do we need in which positions in the law firm? There are around 12 to 13 different roles that every successful law firm needs. So that's the factory, how we're going to produce it, and the people who is going to manage these systems so the actual work gets produced. Number 5 is a physical plant. So make sure that the office space, the equipment, the policies, the procedures are structured in a way that will allow us to actually produce the work. So what do we need? Do you need a case management system? Do you need a billing system? Do you need a way to take on credit cards? Do you need a way to be able to send out contracts? All of these things are part of the physical plant. Do we need computers? Do we need operating systems? What do we need so our plant actually operates? Number 6, financial reports. We call it money and metrics. And when we say money and metrics, most people only think about financial reports, which are absolutely fundamental. We should have work in progress reports. We should have account receivable reports. We should have P&Ls. We should have balance sheets. We should have cash flow forecasts. Absolutely indispensable to know how your cash is going to behave inside of your law firm. But not only that. By the way, when you create the business plan, you don't have to create all of these reports. You just have to make a list in your business plan of the reports that your business needs, so you can be watching those reports and you can operate that business effectively. So I already gave you a bunch of financial reports that you would like to think about. Other reports, think about the 7 parts of the business. So each one of the 7 parts of the business requires at least a report. So marketing needs a report, right? How many leads are we getting? How many of those are qualified? How many of those schedule consultations with our intake process? Sales needs some reports. How many consultations do we have scheduled? How many people actually show up to the consultation? Because sometimes there's a little bit of a loss there. How many of those who show up to the consultation actually hire us, and for what kinds of matters? Then the factory and the people, right? How am I going to make sure that my people are efficient? So all of these are the metrics. Again, for the creation of the business plan, you don't have to create this report. You just need to make a list of the reports that you want to make sure that your business is producing, whether it's through your bookkeeper or through your salesperson or through your executive assistant, in order for you to have a pulse of what is happening in the business. And then finally, the 6th part is the financials and the metrics. And the 7th part is the you, so the owner, right? I know that our listeners, because they have been listening to Arjun for a while, they already know that the 7th part is where the magic exists. Because a lot of people know what they should be doing, right? They know they should be doing marketing. They know they should be doing a business plan. They know they should have these reports, but very few people actually do it. So how we think about the things that we think about, that's the you part, makes all the difference in the world. So if for your business plan, think about in this next 12 months, just this next 12 months, what are the skill sets that I need to develop as a business owner to be more successful? Do I want to be a better marketer? Do I need to become a better salesperson? Do I need to learn more about managing people? Do I need to, etc.? What do you need to do? What are the skill sets that you need to improve so you can have a higher level of skill set as a business owner to make your business most successful? And you literally imagine that each one of these things, you wrote down some ideas on each page, on one page for each. You put together those 7 pages, and there you go. You have your business plan ready for the next 12 months.
Ooh, that was so good, Erika. And you know what? You actually talked about, the beginning of the cycle is your goals and the end of it is your goals, but it's also your competencies, is what it sounds like. And I hadn't heard that as part of the 7th main part before. But that's so true. My former executive used to say a lot, the CEO that I am today is not the CEO that my company will need in 5 years. And I can evolve myself into the CEO that my company will need in 5 years, or I can stagnate and have to outsource that in 5 years, but it's kind of that either or, right? If you are growing your business, you also have to grow your mindset and grow your skill set so that you are the right person to continue leading.
Absolutely. There's, again, this was another mentor. He said something that it's so true. When you are a business owner, the business that you have will only grow as much at your own level of self-development. Other people say personal success always precedes professional success. And those 2 things are absolutely true. Again, because how we think about the things that we think about makes a huge difference. And in other words, let me give you a very clear, practical example of this. Let's imagine that you have a business owner and they know that they're drowning in legal production, this is very common, right? They are getting clients, things are working, but they're drowning because they are having to work 50, 60, 80 hours a week, and they can barely stay afloat. They know they need to hire. They know they should hire a paralegal or they should hire an attorney, depending on their circumstances. They don't hire. Why don't they hire? They know they have to hire. They have the work and they are drowning. And the reason why they don't hire is because how they are thinking about the situation. What if I can't pay the paralegal? What if I don't have enough money? What if I don't have enough work? And all of this BS stories that happen in their mind, right? And that is a level of professional development. All the time when we get new members with How to Manage a Small Law Firm, we're always helping them overcome this very first hurdle, which is a big one, right? And when you as the owner go over that first hurdle and you get the experience that, you know, your marketing is going to work, there's going to be work there, if your financial controls are working, you're going to be able to make payroll, and so on and so forth, because all of these 7 parts are connected, they stop being afraid. But that requires a level of proficiency and experience. What happens is that they have the fear, right? And the fear is how they are thinking about their situation, not necessarily what the situation really is. And that is the you part. So the reason why people get stuck there in that situation for many, unfortunately, sometimes many months, but the majority of times many years. And sometimes we get members that have been lawyers for 5, 6, 7 years, and they've been stuck at a certain revenue level because of that fear. And the reason why people get stuck at that level is because they don't put themselves in environments that are going to be conducive and push them into overcoming those hurdles and skill sets. Because once they hire the first time and they understand that marketing leads to sales, and sales leads to production, and production to physical plant, and physical plant to people, and people to collections and money in the bank, and so on and so forth, they grow in their professional maturity. And then that problem is a problem of the past. It's not a problem ever again. And that is one of the most important things that I believe we do in HTM, in How to Manage a Small Law Firm. We not only give you the step-by-step, so in this case, for example, the business plan and the marketing and the sales and all of this, but we also help you grow in your mindset and your professional experience and maturity, so you can grow into the owner of this 500,000, million, 5 million, 10 million, whatever number.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so just to quickly recap, right? Your business plan should not be complicated. We want it to be simple. We want it to be straightforward. You want to take your goals that hopefully by this point in the season you have written down, right? What is your definition of success? What is it that you want? We're going to take those, we're going to reverse engineer how your business currently works to figure out how much growth you need in order to hit those goals. And that is your business plan. Did I miss anything, Erika?
No, that's really it. That's really it.
So there's another question I want to ask, and this one's a little bit more off the beaten path, but I love this one, and the caliber of people we usually have on these interviews usually have some really good things to say. So let me ask, if that's okay, now that I've wound that up a lot, what is something that you have learned that you've taken action on in the last year that has really brought a lot of profit to your life? And not necessarily financially profitable, right? Just our definition of exchanging something you value less for something that you value more.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that necessarily in the last 12 months, but it's definitely gone to a whole new level in the last 12 months, which is your personal, professional, financial success, your success in life, personal, professional, financial, will be directly related to the amount of accountability that you have with yourself. So really bringing up the heat on the ability to keep yourself accountable, to lean into those things, to commit to doing the things that you know they are good for you in the long term, but they don't feel good right now, that you don't want to do right now. Right? And I think that in that one thing, if we make it a habit to lean into what is uncomfortable, only on those things that we know that are good for us in the long term, that is the key to an absolutely successful life. Because what you do is you create self-respect, you create confidence, and I don't want to say that you become unstoppable, because I don't believe that anybody is unstoppable, but definitely your level of confidence and self-reliance and the standards by which you keep yourself accountable to your goals and your dreams goes through the roof, and that changes everyone's life, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe that word is not unstoppable. Maybe it's just your personal resilience will grow.
Mm-hmm. Your internal success and your external success. Your destiny literally changes the day that you decide to stop making excuses as to why you can't have or do what you really wish you would. And then you figure out a way and you say, this is what I want. This is what I think that I need to do in order to get what I want. So I'm going to commit with my whole self to take the actions that I know I need to do to get what I want, and I'm going to stop making excuses. That day, your destiny is absolutely transformed.
Whoo! I am going to put that on a pillow. No, I think that's good advice for everybody, right? Erika, this was fantastic today. I am so glad. Thank you for making space in your schedule to come on today. I think this is going to be really, really valuable for our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor. I really hope that people take a lot out of this. And if I might say, we have an HTM app. You can just go into the marketplace if you have an Android, or the Apple store if you have an Apple phone, or you just HTM, H as in hotel, T as in Thomas, M as in mother, app. And there's tons of also free content in the app that they can start listening to. A lot of it has to do with strategic things like marketing, sales, and all of that. And there's a bunch of mindset and personal development content in there that is free for all of the listeners. So if they want to listen, I think that would be also a really great resource besides this podcast, of course.
You know what? The podcast is in the app too. So that is a really great resource too. Yeah, it's perfect. I'm actually glad that you brought that up, because I always forget that there's a lot of content available, not just to the members on the app. And there is so much. I mean, folks listening, if you like the information that we've been bringing to you so far, there is so much content in the app and in our libraries. I mean, we are spoiled for choice, right? If you're enjoying this so far and you can't wait for the next episode, download the app. I think that's a great idea. Erika, again, thank you so much for coming on today. This was brilliant. I really appreciate your time.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and good luck to everyone. I really hope that they make the decision to change their lives in whatever direction they want. Thank you for having me.
Wow, isn't Erika amazing? So write down what your dreams are. What do you want? And then put together your tactical plan for how you're going to achieve it. And then commit to yourself to make your dreams come true. Because you did the work to climb the mountain, and now you get to enjoy the view from the top. And that's what we've got for you today, folks. Stay tuned next time as we dispel some common myths that could be keeping you from reaching your full potential. We'll see you then. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Profit First for Lawyers. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, tell a friend. And visit profitfirstforlawyers.com/action to download the resources that are going to help you put these concepts to work for your law firm. Your future self will thank you for it. And we will see you next time.